Have you ever stopped to think about what's actually powering you right now? Powering your thoughts, every single movement, even your heartbeat? Well, it's this incredible microscopic process called cellular respiration. And really, it's the engine that keeps all of us running. So let's dive in and see how it works.
To get us started, here's a fun little puzzle for you. On one hand, you've got that burning feeling in your legs after a hard workout. And on the other, the fizzy bubbles in a glass of champagne. They seem like they're from completely different worlds, right? But believe it or not, they share this deep biological secret. And by the end of this, you're going to know exactly what it is.
Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty, we have to start with a fundamental truth. Being alive costs energy, a lot of it. Every single living thing, from the tiniest microbe to the biggest blue whale, has this constant energy bill that it needs to pay, just to stay in the game. You know all that constant hustle and bustle happening inside our cells? That whole buzz of activity is called metabolism. A good way to think about it is like a city's entire economy. You've got things being built, things being broken down, things being shipped around. It's the sum of all of it. It's what keeps you alive. Now, this metabolism isn't just one thing. It really has two sides of the same coin. On one side, you have catabolism. This is all about breaking stuff down, like when you digest your food. And that process releases energy. Then you've got the other side, anabolism, which takes all that energy and uses it to build new things, like muscle tissue. It makes sense, right? You gotta earn the energy before you can spend it.
So how do cells actually spend that energy they've earned? Well, they use this really special molecule called ATP. You can just think of it as the cell's universal energy currency. It's literally cash for the cell. Whenever a cell needs to do any kind of work, it just breaks an ATP molecule, and that releases a perfect little burst of energy to get the job done. All right, so where does all this ATP come from? The main fuel for making it is a simple sugar called glucose. You know, the stuff we get from carbs. So let's follow the journey of our little energy hero, glucose, as it takes its very first step. Here's the deal. It doesn't matter what happens later on. Every single molecule of glucose starts its journey with a process called glycolysis. It happens out in the main part of the cell, what's called the cytoplasm. And it's actually pretty simple. The glucose molecule, which has 6 carbons, gets literally split in half, creating 2 smaller molecules called pyruvate. This is the front door for energy production for pretty much all life on Earth.
And right here, this is where things get really, really interesting. Those 2 pyruvate molecules we just made, they're now staring at a fork in the road. They have a choice to make. And their fate, and more importantly, how much energy this cell is going to get, all comes down to one single factor.
And what's that deciding factor? It's oxygen. That's it. If there's plenty of oxygen around, the pyruvate molecules head over to a special place in the cell, the mitochondrion, to do something called aerobic respiration. But if there's no oxygen available, they just stay put in the cytoplasm and take a totally different route called fermentation.
First, let's follow the high-energy path. This is the main highway, the route that's taken when there's lots of oxygen, and it's where the real energy jackpot is.
So, our pyruvate molecules make their way into the mitochondrion. You've probably heard of this place before, right? It's famously known as the powerhouse of the cell, and for good reason. This is the specialized factory where the main event is about to go down. Once inside, that pyruvate gets completely dismantled. It is broken down all the way into simple waste products, the carbon dioxide that you're breathing out right now, and plain old water. But here's the crucial part. This complete breakdown releases a huge amount of energy, and that energy is captured to make a whole treasure trove of ATP. Okay, so how much energy are we really talking about? From just one single molecule of glucose, aerobic respiration can squeeze out a whopping 2898 kilojoules of energy. That's just incredible. It shows you how amazingly efficient this oxygen-fueled process is. Definitely remember that number. But what happens when oxygen is in short supply? What if you're exercising so intensely that your lungs just can't keep up? Well, that's when the cell has to switch to its emergency backup plan, this low-oxygen detour we call fermentation. In you and me, this backup plan is called lactic acid fermentation. When your muscles are going all out, they run up what's called an oxygen debt. So to get some quick energy, they convert pyruvate into lactic acid. And yep, it's that buildup of lactic acid that gives you that muscle burn and those cramps. And on a much tastier note, this is the exact same process that bacteria use to turn milk into yogurt.
Now, other organisms, like yeast, do things a little differently. They use something called alcohol fermentation. In this case, pyruvate gets turned into ethanol and carbon dioxide. And we humans have gotten really clever at using this. The carbon dioxide is what makes bread dough rise, and the ethanol, well, that's the alcohol in beer and wine. And get this, even paddy plants use it to survive in soggy, low-oxygen soil. So we have this super efficient main highway and this quick and dirty emergency detour. But just how different are they, really? Let's actually put them side by side and look at the numbers. Whoa, just look at that. The difference is staggering. Aerobic respiration gives us that massive 2898 kilojoules. And then you look at fermentation, alcohol gives you just 210 and lactic acid only a measly 150. It's not even a fair fight. Fermentation gets you some energy in a pinch, but wow, is it inefficient.
So let's just break it all down one last time here. Aerobic respiration. It needs oxygen, it completely breaks down the glucose, it happens in both the cytoplasm and the mitochondrion, and it gives you a super high energy yield. Fermentation, on the other hand, no oxygen needed, it only partially breaks down the glucose, it stays only in the cytoplasm, and its energy yield is, well, very low. So, when you boil it all down, the most important point is this. Both pathways start the exact same way, splitting glucose into pyruvate. But what happens next, whether you get a massive payout of energy or just a tiny bit, is completely decided by whether or not that one little molecule, oxygen, is around.
And that brings us right back to our puzzle from the beginning. What do muscle cramps and champagne have in common? The answer is fermentation. Your muscle cramps, that's lactic acid fermentation when your body is starved for oxygen. The bubbles in booze and champagne, that's just yeast doing alcohol fermentation. They're both just different flavors of the cell's emergency backup plan.
You know, this fundamental choice to use oxygen for a massive energy win or to just get by without it is a strategy that evolved billions of years ago. But from the bread you might have had for breakfast to the very air you're breathing right now, it's a choice that is silently and powerfully running your world every single moment of every single day.